Okay, it's time for us to talk about this book and why it seems that no one ever finishes it. What is it? What keeps us from actually finishing the 12 weeks of The Artist's Way? I'm Mel, and I'm an adventure artist, and I am no stranger to needing to recover your creative self. My own personal artistic journey led me to art school, in which I learned to conform my identity and who I was to the art world. And then, slowly, over time, I gave up on making art. And it wasn't until I went on my own personal journey into nature and in connection with intuition that I was actually able to connect with my creative self once again. That is the core theme of The Artist's Way. It's why I've picked up the book so many times and why I keep trying to complete it. But I keep giving up. And I know that if you're watching this, you've struggled with it too. So let's get into what are those reasons why we give up. I think the first is the structure. It's 12 weeks long, meaning that it takes a little less than a quarter of a year to complete. That's a lot of time to give. It's about as long as a traditional semester in college. But if you're a working person, especially a working parent, the rigor of the program is going to make you fall off and fast. Have you ever tried to organize a hangout with a bunch of adults who work? Have you ever tried to organize a D&D campaign? Once we get into the realities of adult life, we forget about how hard it is for ourselves to make consistent time for the same thing every week, let alone over the course of 12 weeks. Essentially, what you're trying to do with this book is cultivate a creative habit. But habits take time to form into things that are unconscious, that we just do without thinking about them. You know, the things like brushing our teeth. Plus, for me, there's something about the rigor of 12 weeks at this fast pace that doesn't feel restful. And if the idea is to engage with your creative recovery, we need to build in time for rest, don't we? So here's one solution to the time problem for you. You can split this over the course of the year. You could do 3 weeks in the spring, 3 weeks in the summer, 3 in the fall, and 3 in the winter. And then give yourself time to actually integrate the work over the course of those other weeks. It also could allow you to spread the weeks over multiple weeks instead of just trying to crunch it all in at once. I don't necessarily think that creativity and crunch go hand in hand. It sounds like a recipe for disaster. Plus, if you take the time to actually integrate the lessons in a book like this into your everyday life, I think that you'll be able to persist in the actual practices and habits a whole lot more sustainably. The next problem is throughout those 12 weeks, the amount of work that's expected of you takes between 10 and 20 hours a week. That's essentially an additional part-time job. Again, if you're a working parent or you work more than one full-time or part-time job, the time commitment is going to feel impossible. It's going to be really easy to get overwhelmed and suddenly feel behind. So if you've had this happen, just know you're not alone. I'm with you. Next up, I want to critique one of the tools, the morning pages. I truly believe that the morning pages aren't for everyone. And the attitude that Julia Cameron takes around the morning pages is that they have to be done. They have to be done in this way. Everything is very rigid. If you don't follow this very rigid set of rules and ways of doing things, then you're not doing it right. If you're not doing your morning pages to the T in the exact way that Julia Cameron lines out, then you're not recovering correctly, or you're not doing your inner artist the right service. And I don't think that that's fair to you. So as an artist who has wrist injuries and all kinds of chronic pain, writing 3 pages in a physical notebook is not possible for me. It's just not. But doing things like recording into my voice memos or writing in the notes app on my phone could be a little bit easier. It's also kind of vague as to how big of the pages are they. 3 pages in 2 different notebooks could look completely different. A tiny little notebook is going to be a whole lot different in terms of writing those 3 pages than a much bigger notebook. So exactly what size, how many pages, how long should I spend writing? When I was going through it, I was finding myself spending an hour and a half every morning just to get those 3 pages filled. And then I would end up hurting my wrist and be unable to knit or draw. That didn't really feel compatible to my own journey towards being more creative. My correction on the morning pages is that it should be something a lot more simple. I think that it just needs to be about connecting with yourself rather than with the thoughts of others around you. In our culture, it is so easy for us to pick up our phones first thing in the morning and start to consume. You might even be watching this video while you're in bed. No judgment. I do it too. But that puts us in a precarious situation where we're finding ourselves unable to connect with us, and instead we're connecting with the thoughts of others. And I think that is at the core of what she's trying to talk about here. Another gripe that I have about morning pages is that you're not supposed to do anything with them. I'm a writer. When I'm writing, I want to be able to use that material. I think having a diverse set of creative habits is the way that we can actually get into what the meat and potatoes of that argument is. We just need to connect to our creativity. We need to show up and let it show up to us. What she's really talking about is our creative intuition. That's that magical feeling that we're inspired and we want to go do something. And when we're inspired and we want to go do something, it's exciting. We can't contain it. We can't control it. We want it. We want to go do it. My solution to the morning pages is that you just form a simple, disciplined creative habit, whether that is working in your sketchbook, writing, recording yourself talking, playing on your piano, or strumming your guitar. Any creative habit. Show up, work with your reclaimed clay, go out on a walk in your neighborhood and take photos of the flowers you see. All of these are just creative habits and they'll help you connect to yourself. And I think that's at the real root of the wisdom here. One thing I do like about the fact that she challenges you to do writing is that she's challenging you to move outside of your traditional medium. So if you're a visual artist, what would it mean for you to work on talking or playing music or knitting or doing some other kind of meditative act where you're allowing yourself time to think and be present? And remember that as we form a habit, we share our values through our habits. So if you've ever leaned into your values and wondered, I don't think that the things in my life that I'm doing are in alignment with these values I say that I have, then maybe you need to change your habits. All right, I gotta flip to this one. We need to talk about the fact that each week, the sheer number of tasks is enough to put someone with ADHD or some other form of neurodivergence into full-on paralysis. Let's see. So in just week 1 alone, not including your morning pages and not including your artist date, you have 10 additional tasks. You have 7 days in a week. So that's multiple tasks per day, plus your full-time job, plus your childcare, plus caring for your community, plus cooking meals, plus doing things. When do you sleep? The sheer volume for me of tasks to do is probably one of the reasons why I picked the book up, because I was excited for all of these different potentials. But then I get overwhelmed by how much there is to do and feel as though I either am not doing enough or I can't do it enough to my particular perfectionist tendencies. And then it just leads to a shutdown and I give up. I walk away from the book. Okay, this next one's going to be a hot take, but I have to be honest. Some of the stuff in here needs to be processed with a professional. And that is real, okay? It is totally okay to want to work with a mental health professional, especially when it comes to creativity. Modalities like art therapy are very real, super valid, and incredibly important. But I think that some of the ways that things are written in the book are not really written in a way that is very trauma-informed to at least what I know of from my experiences in therapy. I think that if you have trauma and you are picking up the artist's way and you're not prepared with the tools from a personalized therapy session with a real human being, not AI, it's going to feel really heavy, and it runs the risk of actually potentially making you feel worse as you start to uncover things without the tools and assistance of professional support. Plus, there are some aspects to this that do remind me of 12-step or recovery programs for things like addiction, and so those are also things that are very real and very hard to overcome on your own. So seriously, if you have thought about considering therapy, this is not an ad. I'm just telling you, therapy rules and you should do it. Okay, another thing about the artist way that really gets me is artist dates. I feel like the compulsion to need to go somewhere and spend money doesn't really feel in alignment with my personal anti-consumption or low-buy, no-spend values. So if that is something that you relate to, maybe instead of feeling like you need to go to a coffee shop and buy a drink, or that you need to go stimulate the economy in some other way, you could just go to the park. You could just go to your open space. You can just go be in nature. This is what I do, and it works a lot better for me. Speaking of consumption, another thing that grinds my gears about the Artist's Way is the fact that there's abundance mentality. And that stuff can feel so tricky. In the spirituality community, I think it is so easy to see things that start talking about manifesting abundance, or really just thinking about manifesting money or things of that nature, get into dangerous territory, especially when we're talking to working class people who are struggling to make ends meet. We can't just wish our way into more money. Hot take though, I think that using spirituality and your spiritual beliefs to control money is a way of bypassing its true purpose. It's meant to make you feel alive, not to help you buy a Labubu. So the abundance thing transitions really easily into probably one of the biggest reasons why people give up on this, and it's that our religious beliefs and our religious upbringings are very different. The big G God freaked me out. As a queer person, especially living in the United States, where religion has been weaponized against people like me for existing, it's really important to note how people can be triggered by this. I grew up in the Midwest, in a place where a lot of very fundamentalist Christian churches exist, and I have a lot of friends that while they have a relationship to God, they have serious religious trauma. Again, this gets back to why I think an actual therapist helping you facilitate some of the more difficult exercises here is important. But at the end of the day, that big G can really impact people and really trigger them. Spirituality is a really sensitive topic, but it means a lot to me. And I think that we all have this beautiful and unique opportunity to start to cultivate our own spiritual practices, to find our own unique spiritual communities, and to recognize who we really are and what we believe, not necessarily what we were forced to believe through our upbringings. Now, Cameron does talk about the fact that you can replace this with higher power or creative self or spirit or other words, but the fact that it's printed big G God all throughout the text can feel really heavy, especially if you are having to do the constant heavy lifting in order to replace that in your own head. So if you've heard some of the things that I've said so far and you're feeling like you can relate to it, I have a feeling you're really going to like the thing that I've been working on called the Hiker's Way. It's my own version of the Artist's Way, and I've made the tools /week 0 completely free. You can get it by just signing up for my Substack. There's a little link to that down below. You'll get access to it as a link in your welcome email, and so you'll get 4 episodes of a podcast showing you how to form your creative habit, figure out what your values actually are, and actually form the commitments that you need to get out, be in nature, and experience your creative self. If you're curious, step 1, sign up for week 0. Step 2, join the Discord so that way you can be a part of the third space that I am hosting online in order to start to make this happen for other people. And third, go ahead and check out the Hiker's Way page on my website where you can read all about what we're going to learn on each individual week and see if the program's for you. It's going to be a podcast. You can listen to it while you're out in nature or while you're just relaxing at home, and I hope that it can help you combat some of these issues and reasons why you've stopped the Artist's Way on your journey toward your more creative self. So I have another language critique around this book, and that is that some of the language is outdated. There are some things in the book where she's talking about assumptions around how artists live, that artists will end up poor or disabled or with AIDS, and that bad. I don't like that that was what was brought up. Now, this book was written in 1992, but that kind of assumption is subtly very homophobic, especially thinking about the AIDS crisis and how much suffering the queer community went through in regards to that. I also get the ick from some of the conversations around these like super rich business people that suddenly found their creativity. I mean, not that people who have money are inherently bad, but I find it harder to relate to as someone who has always had to struggle to make ends meet when I'm hearing about, some CEO guy. Like, I don't relate to CEO guy. I I don't. I just it's just not me. Okay, so next up, the idea around working in isolation and having to make sure that you're walling yourself in. I get the importance of needing to make time and make space for your creativity, especially because a lot of people in your life are likely going to see, oh, this person is being creative. Well, I hope they can provide for themselves. I hope they don't quit their job. These are all real conversations that I've had with my family too, especially now that I'm out on my own, being an artist, teaching, working independently, and being self employed. It's scary, I'm not gonna lie, but the naysayers will come for you and quickly because our culture teaches us that creativity and a creative life is not a life of comfort, it's a life of suffering. And I don't think that that's fair. I also think that rather than isolating yourself, you should bring yourself around community that supports you. It's not so much about you as an individual as it is about trying to foster real relationships with other people who could deeply benefit from your creative self too. So many of my friends are constantly like, hey Mel, I noticed that you have quit Instagram. How did you do that? And then I tell them it was knitting. And then all of a sudden they want to come with me to my Monday night knitting group and build community with the people there. And I think that is what's key, is that we need to invite other people in to try and create with us. It might not be in the same way, it might be a slightly different modality or creative habit, but I think that we can really form deeper communities by doing creativity together instead of separately. Okay, I want to end this video on a positive note, but I want to share what I do really love about this book. I think that The Artist's Way is a really great method for learning to listen to your inner creative. It is okay if you don't do it in 12 weeks. It is okay if you make up your own whole new version. That's being creative. You know your brain and what works best for you. If you have a particular gripe with this book or reason why you never finished it, I would love to know in the comments. Or if you loved it and you think that the things that I'm saying are wrong, you can tell me that I'm wrong. I can handle it. That is all I have for you in this video. If you liked the things that I shared, consider subscribing, consider liking the video, and until next time, stay creative and find your own ways to persistently bloom. Oh, hello, person who's still here. It's wonderful that you're here. I just wanted to let you know that I've got this video here that the algorithm thinks you'll like. I've got this video over here that I think you'll like. And then I also have this little button down here that if you're not subscribed yet, maybe you should subscribe. So that way you know when I post things and when I'm talking about stuff like this.